Last Saturday, the world didn't just crack beneath me. It shattered into pieces so small I couldn't even feel anger at first, only a strange, hollow curiosity, the way you might look at a car wreck you're somehow still walking away from. I was at my buddy's place, a backyard barbecue thrown together for no reason except to kill time before the seasons changed. I wasn't planning to stay late, but around 9:45 p.m., while laughing over a bad beer, I realized I left my phone inside the house on silent. When I picked it up, there were 6 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. One text popped up right after, "You should come home. Your wife's not alone." No name, no explanation, just that. My first instinct wasn't even panic. It was irritation, a cold, simmering kind. I left without saying goodbye, keys jangling in my pocket like tiny warning bells. The streets were too empty as I drove, headlights slicing the night into shreds. When I pulled up to the house, every window was dark except for one, our bedroom window. There was a faint orange glow leaking out from under the curtain like a wound that wouldn't close. For a second, I sat there in the car, engine humming low. A weird calm washed over me, like my mind already knew what my body hadn't caught up to yet. I killed the engine, stepped out, and crossed the driveway. The porch light had burned out weeks ago. I kept telling myself I'd fix it. Now I was glad it was dead. I moved through the shadows up to the door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open so gently the hinges didn't even creak. Inside, the house was thick with some expensive cologne that wasn't mine. It clawed at my nostrils, sharp and unfamiliar. I stood there, still as a statue, and then heard it, muffled voices upstairs. A man's chuckle, low and smug, and her voice, lilting, teasing. A tone she hadn't used with me since before the ink on our marriage license dried. I took the stairs 2 at a time without thinking, like gravity didn't apply to me anymore. I didn't even feel my legs moving. Halfway up, I paused just before reaching the landing, catching the edge of their conversation. "I told you he's clueless. He still thinks we're planning that Italy trip," she said, laughing breathlessly. "You're evil," the man murmured, and she giggled like it was the funniest compliment she'd ever been given. "Maybe, but you love it." That's when I saw them, through the crack in the bedroom door. Her sitting on the edge of the bed in nothing but one of my old t-shirts, legs swinging playfully, and him standing there like he owned the place, pulling on his belt without hurry, like he wasn't afraid of being caught, because he wasn't. Because they knew I was nothing but background noise to them now. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I backed down the stairs like a ghost and left the door ajar behind me. Unnoticed, unimportant. In the driveway, I laughed. An ugly sound that didn't feel like it came from me. I laughed because I had spent years killing myself to make her happy, to build a life where she would never want for anything. And here she was throwing it away for some faceless, cologne-drenched nobody who didn't even bother sneaking out properly. And then something inside me clicked. Not anger, not sadness. Something colder, sharper, a decision. I wasn't going to smash windows. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't even going to give her the satisfaction of a confrontation. I was going to watch her set fire to everything she touched. And when the smoke cleared, I'd still be standing. After years of pain, I watched my wife's affair destroy her. I made sure the man who stole her heart became her worst nightmare. And I never even lifted a finger that I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I drove to an all-night diner across town where nobody knew my name and sat in a cracked red booth nursing a coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. In front of me was a napkin, blank except for the circle I kept tracing over and over with a pen. Like if I spun it enough, the whole world would rewind to a time before tonight. Around 3 a.m., my phone vibrated. Her name lit up the screen. I stared at it until it went dark again. She didn't leave a voicemail. 5 minutes later, another text. "Where are you? Come home. I miss you." It was almost funny how quickly she tried to put the mask back on. Like a kid who broke a vase and thought if they smiled wide enough, no one would notice the pieces. I didn't reply. Instead, I paid the check and drove home just as the sky began bleeding into pale blue. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch, wrapped in one of my sweatshirts, pretending to be cold. Big wide eyes. Innocent act. She jumped up and ran to me, throwing her arms around my neck like some pathetic homecoming scene. "You scared me," she said, voice cracking just a little, the perfect hint of vulnerability. "Why didn't you answer?" I stood there, Let her cling to me. Let her smell the coffee and cold air on my clothes. Let her think I still cared. And then I asked, so calmly it almost scared me, was he worth it? She stiffened in my arms so quickly it was like being hugged by a mannequin. She pulled back, blinking too fast. What are you talking about? She said, her voice too light, too high, a pitch reserved for liars and salesmen. I don't know what you think you saw, but I cut her off, still quiet. I didn't see anything. I heard everything. Silence. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She looked like she wanted to run, like she was calculating whether she could spin some fresh lie fast enough to smother the truth. But I gave her no time. You think I'm stupid? I asked, voice dropping to a whisper that still somehow filled the entire room. You think I couldn't smell him all over this place? You think I couldn't hear you laughing about how dumb I am? She shook her head, tears starting now. Not real ones, but the kind you can summon when you're cornered. The ones that worked on me 100 times before. Please, she said, reaching for my hand. Please, it didn't mean anything. I was drunk. I was lonely. You've been working so much lately, and I made a mistake. One mistake. I swear to God it meant nothing. There it was, the script, the desperation, the rewriting of history. I let her talk. Let her dig her own grave, one desperate shovel of lies at a time. Every word she said was a betrayal layered on top of betrayal. My hands hung loosely by my sides. I felt nothing but a strange, electric kind of clarity. When she finally ran out of words, when she stood there panting like a dog that had chased its own tail into exhaustion, I leaned in close enough for her to smell the burnt coffee on my breath. I'm not angry, I said. I'm done. And I turned my back on her. The sound she made as I walked away was somewhere between a sob and a scream, a ragged noise full of rage, fear, and disbelief. She had thought I would fight for her, that I would crawl, that I would beg. She didn't understand yet. I wasn't leaving because she hurt me. I was leaving because she didn't matter enough to hurt me anymore. I didn't move out immediately. No, that would have been too easy for her. Too simple. She would have played the victim to everyone we knew. Spun some sad little story about how I abandoned her when times got tough. How I gave up on us. Instead, I stayed. I stayed in that house like a ghost, silent, cold, untouchable. I slept in the guest room. I changed my routines. I left early, came back late. I answered her questions with one-word replies, if at all. I made it clear in 1,000 small ways that she no longer had access to me. Not my attention, not my warmth, not even my anger. I became a wall she couldn't climb, and she broke herself against it. The first few days, she tried the classic moves. Cooking my favorite meals, dressing up like she used to when we first met, leaving little notes on the fridge saying things like, I miss us, and please come back to me. I didn't touch the food. I didn't acknowledge the notes. I didn't even look at her longer than necessary. I saw the panic bloom in her eyes, the realization that the leash she thought she had around my neck had snapped, and she had no idea how to fix it. A week later, the cracks really started to show. I came home one night and found her sitting on the stairs, glass of wine in hand, mascara smudged down her cheeks like bruises. You can't just ignore me forever, she said, slurring slightly. We're married. You owe me a chance to make this right. I walked past her without a word. She threw the glass at the wall. It shattered into 1,000 glittering shards. She screamed something after me. Maybe my name, maybe just a wordless howl of frustration, but I didn't turn around. I didn't even flinch. The next morning, she was back to pretending nothing happened. Smile plastered on. Cheerful humming in the kitchen. She even offered to make coffee like she used to, like it was still us. I let her talk. I let her build her little fantasy world, piece by pathetic piece. Because while she was busy lying to herself, I was busy laying the groundwork. I copied every financial document, every piece of proof of her affair. Text messages, phone records, even security footage from a neighbor's door cam that showed her lover sneaking into our house while I was at work. I gathered everything meticulously, calmly, the way you pack a suitcase for a trip you know will be one way. And while I built my quiet arsenal, I started giving her just enough hope to keep her dancing on the string. A small smile here, a brief conversation there, tiny crumbs of attention that made her believe maybe, just maybe, she could still win me back. She didn't know it yet, But I was setting the stage for her own downfall. Because the man she had thrown herself at, he wasn't just some random mistake. He was a married man, too, with a wife far less forgiving than I was. I had found her, reached out, told her everything. And together, we were about to make sure that neither of them had a place left to hide. It didn't take long before the first domino fell. 3 days after my silent pact with the lover's wife, her name was Monica. I watched the beginning of the end unfold like a movie I had already seen. Monica was efficient, ruthless in a way I didn't have to coach. She didn't send angry texts. She didn't show up screaming on our lawn. No, Monica hit where it hurt. At exactly 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, while Amanda was lounging on the couch pretending to work from home, a courier rang the bell. I stayed out of sight as she answered it, signing for a thick envelope she barely glanced at before tossing it on the kitchen table. An hour later, she opened it. I knew the moment it happened because the silence in the house shifted, turned heavy, like the air before a tornado. Inside the envelope were photos, screenshots, printed copies of their text messages, time-stamped proof, a polite letter from Monica's lawyer, letting her know that divorce proceedings were underway, and that she would be named as a cause of marital dissolution. The cherry on top, Monica wasn't just divorcing him. She was taking everything: house, kids, bank accounts, pensions. She was dragging him through a legal firestorm that would burn his life to ashes. And Amanda? She was listed in the paperwork, publicly, by name. The words alienation of affection screamed from the page like a scarlet letter. I watched from the hallway as she flipped through the papers with trembling hands. Watched the panic bloom across her face as she realized that her perfect little secret wasn't a secret anymore. She spent the whole afternoon pacing, phone glued to her ear, trying to call him. Her voice brittle, sharp, desperate. He wasn't answering. The man she wrecked everything for had disappeared, pulled the ripcord and bailed without even a goodbye. When she finally threw her phone against the wall and sank to the floor sobbing, I didn't move to comfort her. I didn't say a word. She was in the ruins of the life she had chosen, and I was content to let her sit there among the wreckage. But that was only the beginning, because the next part of the plan was even simpler. Let the truth spread, not by shouting it from rooftops, but by 1,000 small, unstoppable whispers. Within a week, the rumors started swirling. Our friends, our neighbors, even her own family. Little things leaked out. Pictures, overheard conversations, half-sent text messages. I never once spoke badly about her to anyone. I didn't have to. The evidence spoke louder than anything I could have said. At dinners, people stopped making eye contact with her. At brunches, she was left out of conversations. Invitations dried up. Friendly smiles curdled into tight, polite nods. She tried to pretend nothing was wrong at first. All bright smiles and fake laughter. But the cracks were obvious. Every time a friend canceled plans, every time someone hesitated before hugging her, it chipped away at her carefully crafted world. And me? I remained calm, polite, unbothered. I was the portrait of the wronged but dignified husband, and no one questioned it. Not once. The best revenge, I realized, wasn't shouting or fighting or breaking things. It was standing so still while she destroyed herself trying to fix what could no longer be fixed. And she was only just beginning to understand that she was utterly, terrifyingly alone. Amanda didn't go down quietly. She was never the type to accept losing, not when she'd spent so long weaving the perfect image of herself in front of everyone we knew. When the world started closing in, she snapped like a trapped animal. It started with small things. Fake apologies, crocodile tears, promises she had no intention of keeping. One night she cornered me in the kitchen, blocking the doorway with her body, clinging to my arm like a drowning woman. I get it, okay? I get that you're angry, but we can fix this, she said, voice trembling just enough to sound almost believable. We've been through too much to throw it away over one stupid mistake. I didn't pull away. I didn't even flinch. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger standing in my house wearing the face of someone I used to love. One stupid mistake? I said, voice calm enough to make her flinch. You didn't trip and fall into his bed. You invited him in. You laughed about it. Her face crumpled like wet paper. For a second, she didn't know what to say. But Amanda was never one to leave a losing hand unplayed. That's when she made her next move, the desperate, ugly one. 2 days later, I came home to find a small group gathered in our living room. Her parents, her sister, even an old family friend I barely knew. She had called them, spun some frantic story about how I was withdrawing from her after a small misunderstanding, how we just needed help finding our way back. They all sat there, faces tense, waiting for me to perform, waiting for me to sit down, take her hand, cry about how hard marriage is, say I forgave her. Amanda was standing in the center of the room like a puppet master, eyes gleaming with rehearsed sadness. The moment I stepped inside, all their gazes pinned me like knives. Amanda told us everything, her mother said, voice tight. She's trying. Her sister chimed in, throwing Amanda a teary look of encouragement. You need to move past your pride, the family friend added, leaning forward like he was about to deliver a sermon. I didn't answer them. I just walked to the mantelpiece where a framed photo of our wedding day still sat, picked it up, looked at it for a long, cold second, at the way Amanda had leaned into me, laughing, as if she could never imagine betraying me. Then I set it back down carefully, turned to the room full of people who thought they knew the truth. I'm glad you're all here, I said, my voice clear, steady. It saves me from having to say this more than once. Amanda's smile flickered. For the first time that day, she looked nervous. I pulled out a manila folder from under my jacket. Not dramatic, not planned, just something I had tucked under my arm as I left the car, just in case. Inside were copies of the photos, the text messages, the timestamps, everything. I placed the folder on the coffee table like it weighed nothing at all. If you really want to help Amanda, I said, looking each one of them in the eye, you should start by helping her pack. Silence, thick enough to choke on. Her mother opened the folder with trembling hands. Her sister gasped when she saw the first picture. The old family friend just stood up quietly and walked out the door. Amanda's mouth moved, but no words came out. Her carefully laid plan had collapsed in less than a minute. She looked at me then, not with anger or sadness or even guilt, but with naked, furious hatred. Not because I exposed her, but because I refused to play my part in her fantasy. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and left without looking back. Behind me, the house erupted, shouting, crying, the full messy symphony of a life imploding. And still, I felt nothing but a clean, endless kind of silence inside me. Amanda had thrown a grenade into our lives. All I did was hand it back to her before it exploded. Leaving that house didn't feel like defeat. It felt like shedding dead skin. Something rotten and heavy peeling away, leaving nothing but raw, clean space behind. I didn't have a plan for where I was going next. I didn't need one. I had already won. Meanwhile, Amanda was busy sinking deeper into the quicksand she made for herself. Over the next few days, the calls started. First, from her. Voicemails that started off sweet. Whispered apologies, tearful promises, but quickly turned ugly when she realized I wasn't answering. The sweetness gave way to screaming, accusations, wild, unhinged rants about how I was ruining her life by not giving her a second chance. Then the messages shifted. She stopped pretending it was about love. It became about image, about reputation, about control. You don't understand what you're doing to me. Everyone is taking your side. Do you know how that makes me look? You're destroying everything we built. Not a single word about regret. Not a single word about me. Only about her, her humiliation, her broken kingdom, her crumbling mask. I ignored it all. Then the second wave hit. Her friends. Mutual acquaintances started reaching out. Carefully worded texts and calls trying to feel me out. They'd heard some rumors. They wanted to hear my side. They hoped we could work it out because you guys were so perfect together. I knew exactly what Amanda was doing. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to control the narrative. She couldn't stand that people pitted her. She couldn't stand that when she walked into a room now. Conversations stopped. Eyes slid away. Smiles turned tight and polite. And she blamed me for it because in her mind she was still the victim. She always would be. One night, about 2 weeks after I left, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me it wasn't her this time. It wasn't. It was him, the man she threw it all away for. His voice was raw, broken, almost drunkenly bitter. "I know you're the one who talked to my wife," he said, no hello, no preamble. "I just wanted to say, you destroyed 2 lives." I sat there, listening to the weight of his anger and misery pour through the phone, and smiled. Not out of cruelty, but out of a strange, satisfying sense of justice. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "You two did that all by yourselves." He hung up without another word. It was almost too easy. After that night, it was like the final thread snapped. Amanda started appearing at places she knew I might be. Restaurants, coffee shops, even outside my gym once, pretending it was a coincidence. Each time she looked a little worse. A little thinner, a little more desperate, the edges of her carefully curated life fraying in public for everyone to see. And each time I did the same thing. I walked past her like she was invisible. Nothing cut her deeper. Not anger. Not revenge. Not even exposing her lies. It was my indifference that gutted her. Because it meant she no longer had any power over me. And power, not love, not loyalty, not even the affair itself, was all she ever really cared about. Rock bottom came for Amanda faster than even I expected. The silence from me, the isolation from her friends, the collapse of her reputation. It all finally cracked through the delusions she had been clinging to like broken armor. One Friday evening, just as I was settling into my new apartment, a knock rattled the door. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I already knew. When I opened it, Amanda stood there, drenched from the rain, arms wrapped around herself, mascara running in messy trails down her cheeks. No umbrella, no jacket, just a shaking, desperate woman holding herself together by a thread so thin it practically hummed in the air. For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at me with a raw, almost animal desperation. Finally, she spoke, voice hitching like a bad transmission. "I made a mistake," she said. "I made a mistake and I can't take it back. But you don't have to hate me. We can fix this. We can be better than we were. I'll do anything. Anything." The word hung there, bitter and hollow. I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside, letting the door swing open wider. She stumbled in like she was afraid I'd change my mind. Inside, she stood dripping onto the floor, looking so out of place among the clean lines and quiet calm of my new life. And that's when she played her final card, the one she thought would save her. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The room seemed to contract. The rain outside drummed harder against the windows. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt suddenly too loud. She watched me carefully, waiting for the reaction she needed. Shock, fear, hope. Instead, I gave her nothing. "That's not mine," I said, voice steady. Her face crumpled in real time, horror washing through her features. You can't know that," she stammered. "It was only once. It didn't mean anything. I didn't even want." "You didn't even want to what?" I asked, stepping closer. "Didn't want to betray me? Didn't want to risk throwing your life away for a few cheap nights? Didn't want to get caught?" Tears streamed down her face. She shook her head, words choking in her throat. But there it was, the truth. I didn't need a DNA test. I didn't need proof. Because when she said only once, I remembered hearing her laugh upstairs that night. I remembered the way she whispered, "He'll be home soon." Not panicked, not guilty, but gleeful. It hadn't been once. It hadn't been a mistake. It had been a lifestyle. Amanda had gambled everything. And now she was begging for mercy with nothing left to offer but lies and desperation. I looked at her one last time, the woman I had once believed I would spend my whole life with, and felt absolutely nothing. "I'm not your safety net," I said, voice low but firm. "You can raise your mistakes without me." And then I opened the door again. She didn't move at first, standing there shivering, soaked, broken. "Please," she whispered. But the word didn't even reach me. I stepped aside and pointed to the door. After a long, bitter moment, she walked out, back into the cold, into the rain, into a world she had burned to ash with her own hands. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and just like that, Amanda, and everything she had ever meant to me, was gone. In the weeks that followed, my life moved forward like a river washing past a fallen tree. Steady, relentless, leaving Amanda behind like so much debris. I focused on myself, on the friends who hadn't disappeared, On work that suddenly felt lighter without the invisible weight of her expectations dragging behind me. I signed the divorce papers without ceremony. Didn't ask for anything but my name back. She didn't contest it. She couldn't afford to. The scandal clung to her like smoke. The whispers had reached every corner of her world. Employers, friends, family. Nobody wanted to be near the woman who had gambled a marriage away for nothing and then lied about it until her house collapsed around her. I didn't watch it happen directly. I didn't have to. The updates came on their own, through mutual friends, accidental sightings, stray mentions. She had to move in with her sister after defaulting on her half of the mortgage. The man she destroyed her life for never came back, too busy clawing his way through his own brutal divorce. Jobs slipped through her fingers. Friends stopped returning her calls. She became a ghost long before she realized she was dead to everyone who mattered. And then, the last echo of her pride crumbled. One evening, as I was closing up my laptop after work, I found an envelope slid under the door. No name, no message. Inside were sonogram pictures, blurry, black and white windows into a life I would never know. Amanda's name was scrawled in the corner, medical dates that placed the conception perfectly inside the timeline of her betrayal. A final, desperate plea without a single word attached. The saddest attempt at bait I had ever seen. I didn't hesitate. I folded the pictures once, calmly, and dropped them into the trash. Her life wasn't my responsibility anymore. I wasn't the villain in her story. I wasn't the savior either. I was simply free. She wanted to use a child, maybe even an innocent child that wasn't mine, to pull me back into her crumbling world. But I was already too far beyond her reach. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate requires passion, energy, a place in your heart reserved for battle. Amanda had become nothing more than an empty space in my past. A lesson etched in scar tissue I no longer felt. Somewhere out there, she was still scrambling for footing, trying to rebuild the empire of lies she had buried herself under. And I was just a man, sitting in a clean, quiet apartment, sipping coffee as rain slid down the windows. Alive, whole, untouchable. The storm had passed, and I hadn't even gotten wet. I didn't hear from Amanda for months after the sonogram stunt. The silence wasn't peaceful, not at first. It felt loaded, like the quiet before a second bomb you know is buried somewhere under the rubble. Something unfinished, something waiting. I kept living, built new routines, started seeing a therapist, not because I needed to fix myself, but because I wanted to make sure I never let rot like hers grow unseen inside me again. My days became mine again. My nights were dreamless. The ache she'd left behind wasn't gaping anymore. Just a scar tight across my chest whenever I stretched too far. Could have ended there. Should have ended there. But Amanda never knew how to leave a stage without trying to make it about her one last time. It happened at a friend's wedding. Someone we had both known for years. Someone who hadn't picked a side during the collapse. I almost didn't go. Part of me wondered if it was worth the risk of seeing her again. But another part, the part that had learned how to breathe on my own again, decided I didn't owe her that fear. The ceremony was beautiful. Sunlight slanting through the trees, music curling through the air, laughter spilling over champagne glasses. I almost forgot she existed, until I didn't. Halfway through the reception, she showed up. Not invited, not welcomed. She walked in like she still belonged, like the past year hadn't happened at all. Wearing a bright, glittering dress, smiling that same calculated smile she always used when she wanted to control the room. At first, people stared in confusion, then discomfort, then disgust, because everyone knew now. Her legend had collapsed into a punchline. The woman who had everything and threw it away for a man who wasn't even brave enough to stand beside her when it mattered. She made a beeline for me, ignoring the frost that spread in her wake. I didn't move, didn't run, didn't even stiffen. She stopped a few feet away, close enough for me to smell the desperate cocktail of cheap perfume and clinging hope. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice low, rehearsed. Around us, people watched, subtle but sharp-eyed. Amanda was betting everything on this moment. She thought if she could spin the right words, force the right scene, she could rewrite the ending of the story she'd shattered. I looked at her, really looked, at the bright dress that didn't hide the wear in her skin, at the gleam of sweat under her makeup, at the crack barely hidden in her voice, and I smiled, not cruelly, Not mockingly, just genuinely, pityingly, and I turned my back on her. I didn't say a word. I didn't give her a speech, a fight, a second chance to grab the spotlight. I turned and walked away, toward a future she would never touch. Behind me, I heard the gasps, the murmurs. I didn't look back. Not once. Amanda had spent her whole life thinking she was the sun, and everyone else simply revolved around her. In that moment, standing alone in the middle of a reception full of people pretending not to watch her fall apart, she realized the world had kept turning without her. It's strange. The things you remember after everything ends. Not the big moments, not the shouting, the betrayals, the slammed doors. Those fade quicker than you'd think. What stays are the small things. The morning light on the empty side of the bed. The way silence sounds different when there's no one left to fill it with lies. The way peace isn't some roaring triumph. It's a quiet thing, patient and stubborn, slipping in once the noise finally dies. I didn't hear from Amanda again after that night. No texts, no phone calls, no staged accidental run-ins. It was as if she finally understood what no amount of begging, scheming, or manipulating had made her understand before. She didn't have a place in my story anymore. She was a closed chapter, a burned bridge over a river I never intended to cross again. Life moved forward with a kind of fierce, steady grace. I got promoted at work, moved into a better apartment, one without any lingering ghosts, started traveling. Nothing big, nothing dramatic, just weekend trips to places I had always put off, waiting for the right time that never came when I was with her. I made new friends, real ones, people who didn't measure loyalty by usefulness or love by convenience. And sometimes, in the rare moments when my mind drifted back to her, it wasn't anger I felt. It wasn't even sadness. It was gratitude. Amanda taught me everything I never wanted to know about betrayal, about lies, about what it means to truly lose yourself inside someone else's illusions. And then she taught me the most important lesson of all. You survive it. You walk through the fire. You let it burn away the parts of you that trusted too blindly, gave too freely, loved too carelessly. And when the smoke clears, you find something underneath you didn't even know was there, a version of yourself that no one can break. Stronger, sharper, wiser, not bitter, not closed off, just awake. There are days I hear about her through secondhand whispers, about the jobs she lost, the short-lived relationships that ended the same way ours did, the family gatherings where her name brings tight smiles and quick subject changes. But I don't linger on it. Her life is not my business anymore. She destroyed herself trying to win a game no one else was playing. I didn't need to lift a finger. I didn't need to fight her. I didn't need revenge. She was her own punishment. And me? I'm not looking backward. Not waiting for apologies that will never come. Not trying to fill the empty spaces she left behind. The truth is simple. The best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's showing them, without ever saying a word, that they never had the power to destroy you.